Babla Jonathan, and this is the 6 p.m. primetime newscast on Équinoxe Television, live from our headquarters in Cameroon's economic capital, Douala. In our top stories in this edition of the news, detained journalist Njoka Kingsley urges the state prosecutor at the Yaoundé military court to investigate the head of the communication department of the Ministry of Defense, Colonel Atonfak. He is accusing him of defamation, notably with regards to statements he made concerning the detained journalists. In the program La Vérité en Face on Equinoxe Television, we'll be giving you details, and we'll also be coming back to what the colonel said concerning detained journalist Njoka Kingsley. In this edition of the news, we'll also be talking about challenges faced by humanitarian workers in the southwest region of the country, one of the two Anglophone regions hit by socio-political and security tension for close to 4 years today. And the World Health Organization director warns against what he qualifies as the lack of critical ingredients in the fight against the coronavirus pandemic, condemns the lack of trust between governments and persons as far as the global response to the coronavirus pandemic is concerned. Stay with us. Thanks for staying with us, ladies and gentlemen. We begin this newscast in the southwest region of the Republic of Cameroon, one of the two Anglophone regions of the country hit by a 4-year-long armed conflict, and humanitarian workers are now facing serious difficulties in their deployment in their efforts to bring aid to persons affected by the Anglophone crisis. And some of the humanitarian workers working for the humanitarian organ of the United Nations Organization were speaking to the press today in the southwest region of Chieftown Buea, and our correspondent Derija to find in details.
These are traders operating in Buea municipality who fell in the council's dragnet. Their shops were sealed Monday, July 13, 2020 for respecting Ghost Town imposed by the separatist fighters. And today, Tuesday, July 14, 2020, these businessmen and women are here at the Buea Council to pay for their shops to be unsealed, and some are not comfortable. But Barrister Mafani David Namange, mayor of the Buea Council, carried out the operation himself in the company of Abba Abdurrahman, the divisional officer for Buea subdivision. Tuesday, July 14, 2020, from his office, Mayor Mafani David Namange reminded the business community that the council's action was legal.
In law, there is something. I remember my professor in law of taxation, Professor Monkari, once told us, even illegalities, that's to say people are carrying out illegal trade, if the council goes out and taxes them, some people will think it's illegal. No. The only obligation we will have is that after we tax them, we report them to the appropriate authority. Again, under the present legal dispensations, if there is a council deliberation on something, it becomes a local law. So in Buea, it has been deliberated and it has been said, if you don't open, you are going to pay, you are going to be sealed. And upon payment, they will reopen. And you are going to pay the sum of 25,000 francs. You know, laws have in a hierarchical form. You have international law, you have what you call municipal law, but municipal law usually covers national law. Soon we'll have regional laws because a regional house is coming, and we'll have a municipal in the proper sense of it, that we can call council laws. So the deliberations of the council.
Shop owners operating in the two Anglophone regions for 4 years now running have been begging on the power that be to consider the tense security atmosphere, which is not any fault of theirs.
We're sorry for that little mix-up. That was rather a report there on the fight against Operation Ghost Town in the town of Buea, and the mayor has entered the shoes of his predecessor, Kema Patrick Esunge, who is of late in the fight against Operation Ghost Town. He is now taking to the streets in the town of Buea to seal shops of persons who are respecting Operation Ghost Town, and he's compelling the traders to stop respecting Operation Ghost Town. Now we come back to the humanitarian situation in the southwest region of the country and the difficulties faced by humanitarian workers, and some workers of the humanitarian organ of the United Nations organization were speaking to the press in Buea today, expressing the challenges that they are facing and of course the impact on their activities and the humanitarian situation globally in the midst of the crisis. Derek Jato once more.
The death of Mba Felix, worker with Doctor Without Borders, last Friday, July 11, 2020 in Koma, allegedly killed by separatist fighters, has opened another disturbing page in the ongoing war in the two Anglophone regions of Cameroon. And to that effect, James Noonan, United Nations Officer for the Coordination of Humanitarian Affairs for the Northwest and Southwest regions, convened a press conference in Buea to reiterate on the United Nations humanitarian principle.
Humanitarian workers are... So we all rely basically on everyone's acceptance, and the only way to do that is to be absolutely neutral. If you are seen giving money to a military checkpoint or to a non-state armed group checkpoint, of course people will look at you and think you're obviously on one side or the other side.
The death of Mba Felix brings the total to 3 United Nations workers who have been killed from when the war started in late 2016. And if such incidents keep repeating itself, United Nations will suspend its humanitarian activities in the Northwest and Southwest regions of Cameroon.
But for sure, if we have more targeted attacks against humanitarians, whether it's kidnappings, threats, or the worst case scenario, people being killed, of course, organizations will consider suspending operations.
And the humanitarian situational picture in these two Anglophone regions is deteriorating. Per the United Nations, it is not clear that the war in the two Anglophone regions is not getting any better nor over.
The situation has got worse gradually since 2018. You can see that many healthcare institutions are not functioning outside of the main cities. And of course, older people, vulnerable people, they'll be badly affected by this. So it's cumulative in some ways. So the humanitarian crisis has been gradually getting worse.
And today critics are worried that if the United Nations finally call off its humanitarian activities, then the bad state of the hundreds of thousands affected by the war might worsen.
Derek Jato reporting there, and that was the head of the United Nations humanitarian organ in the southwest region, speaking to reporters in the Buea. And I told you in the headlines, detained journalist Kingsley Njoka drags or urges the state prosecutor at the Yaoundé military court to investigate Colonel Atonfak Cyril. He is the head of the communication department of the Ministry of Defense, and the detained journalist says that his utterances in the course of the program La Vérité en Face on Équinoxe television considered as criminal because he attacked his character by blatantly engaging in prejudicial comments, defamation, and of course violation of suspects' sacrosanct right to presumption of innocence, defamatory propagation of the secrecy of police investigation, discretion, and breach of professional confidence. And the journalist also decries the points that the colonel placed him or his person on the arm's way with separatist armed groups. He has urged the state prosecutor at the Yaoundé military court to investigate Colonel Atonfak Cyril, head of the communication department of the Ministry of Defense. And now we bring to you what the colonel said during the program. La Vérité en Face. Take it listen.
Je voudrais pas qu'on ferme la page de Njoka Kingsley comme ça.
Let us not close the page of Njoka Kingsley like that. I told you that we can only explain the case of Wazizi by using a case at hand.
Et je dis,
and I told you, You are accusing the army of having tortured Wazizi, but I told you, terrorist Wazizi was a small terrorist. We have somebody today on the highway of evil. He is at 110%, while Wazizi was only at 20%.
Nous avons Njoka Kingsley.
We have Njoka Kingsley, who is some sort of a tax collector, a turning point of the supply of arms and ammunitions. Journalist based in Douala. We have his computer and phones in keeping. We talked with him and he confessed that he was the coordinator of Bui warriors. He confessed that the Bui warriors that he coordinates on instructions have killed many children who dropped their guns because they did not want them to get into the DDR camps. And I am telling you today, the army takes a solemn commitment. You can visit the man. He is dressed in suit. He is in good health, and he is in pre-trial detention at the Kondengi Central Prison. He was presented to the judge, and he was never tortured by anybody. If we don't put Njoka Kingsley and Wazizi side by side, we cannot understand the case of Wazizi. If we have a greater case on the highway of evil, if we have a 100% terrorist like Njoka who was not tortured, we had no interest in torturing Wazizi.
Pourquoi on avait quel intérêt à torturer Wazizi? Aucun.
And the Secretary General of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement CRM political party, Chief Barrister Christopher Ndong, says he's facing death threats, and says in a statement that on the 9th of July 2020 at about 9 p.m. 5 men, 2 of them in civilian attire and 3 others in military attire, approached his residence in the chief town of the southwest region of the country, Boya, and went speaking to his child, threatening him at gunpoint to reveal the whereabouts of his father and to tell them when his father comes to Boya. We'll be coming back to this in greater details in the second part of this edition of the news. Cameroon's Communication Minister Rene Emmanuel Sadi says journalists neither adventurers nor hired gunmen nor people who have been assigned to do some kind of criminal activities, and they must be professional in their duties. He was speaking to he spoke to the press. Take a listen in this report by Innocent.
Communication Minister Rene Emmanuel Sadi fumes at the increasingly recurrent media drift within the national public space, and mostly on the observation of a propensity for systematic misinformation carried out by certain private media and through social media. His press conference July 13, 2020 was as a result of certain recent recurrent events marked by a dizzyingly high propagation of untruths, more apparent and inappropriate, with aim to castigate actions of state officials and to blacken reputation of leading Cameroonians and foreign figures. To Minister Rene Emmanuel Sadi, these untruths and other information he terms generally fabricated or deliberately biased are likely to undermine social cohesion and the living together of Cameroonians. That these misinformation actions are mostly related to the most worrying and sensitive issues of the moment, like management of the COVID-19 pandemic through the government's response plan. Critics, according to the minister, question the statistics published by the Ministry of Public Health on states of the pandemic, challenge preventive measures prescribed by the government and recommended by the World Health Organization, severely criticize the relaxation of measures taken by government without any valid argument, the treatment protocol adopted by health authorities, question the skills of health personnel, or organize real media crusades against the decision of the head of state to resume classes and ensure organization of exams in primary, secondary, and higher education. Minister Rene Emmanuel Sadji says they are proud of the effectiveness of the government's 5-month-old response plan against the COVID-19. Another current worrying event the communication boss dares extracting his teeth on is some media reports about the Anglophone crisis. He believes some media organizations have deliberately chosen to misrepresent the facts depending on the circumstances in which they occur and for hidden purposes. Thus, systematically, unrepentant and totally dehumanized armed gangs, assassins, looters and rapists are presented by certain media players as innocent angels, alert victims of the tyranny of the government and the defense and security forces. As if this is not enough, the minister, to further provoke without mentioning names, says numerous atrocities committed by the armed bands in the northwest and southwest regions are concealed, while the Cameroonian army is constantly being conspired, demonized and stigmatized. However, in the midst of these worrying events, the communication boss educates journalists of some of the talked about media. They are neither adventurers, nor hired gunmen, nor factotums, serving shameful and harmful ideologies. That those who out of ignorance or naivety still allow themselves to get sucked by the torments of professional denial. The government launches an urgent appeal for a burst of responsibility and refocusing on the vocation of the journalism profession and its universal canons.
Coming up, Smart Jikan Gabriel reports that inhabitants of the far north region of the Republic of Cameroon do not only have Boko Haram as an enemy, but many underdevelopment challenges. And in his report, he paints the horrible picture of the Marwa-Kuseri road.
An unending suffering to users imposed by the very bad state of the road. Repeated attacks from members of the Boko Haram terrorist group is the day-to-day trend along the 260-kilometer stretch of road linking Marwa and Kuseri in the far north region of Cameroon.
Dans une seul jour, vous voyez 3 camions sont déjà tombés.
Imagine 3 different truck accidents in just one day. This is terrible and very abnormal. These accidents are on daily basis, and most times, not less than 3 people die in each of the accidents.
Ouais, il y a de morts. Il faut qu'on nous arrange.
See, we came in this morning.
We have been blocked here since morning. The road is very bad.
They don't want to repair the roads.
And we are already in the rainy season. Imagine what awaits users in the days ahead.
So we don't know how we go. You see this morning 2 motors.
The many potholes delay circulation for public transport vehicles, which take over 10 hours to ply the 260 kilometers. When it rains, we spent over 2 weeks just to travel between Fotokol and Kuseri. Heavy duty vehicles and trucks take several days to travel between Kuseri and Marwa, and on daily basis they are involved in accidents like this day, where we witnessed 3 different accidents in the course of our journey. Vehicles forced by the bad road to circulate 20 kilometers per hour are exposed to attacks from Boko Haram militant group.
Nous voyons que l'armée est en train de faire.
The army is doing its best to protect travelers from the repeated attacks of militants of the Boko Haram terrorist group along this stretch.
Et lorsque nous traversons,
the project to construct this stretch began several years ago, and following the kidnap of 10 Chinese workers in 2014, the Military Engineering Corps took over in 2018. In March 2018, an interministerial delegation comprising the ministers of public works, finance and defense, and officials of the World Bank relaunched construction activities while on a visit to the site. 2 years later, Very little or nothing seemed to have been done, leaving users to an unending nightmare.
For me, Armstrong Standard reporting, 4 alleged bandits who had been terrorizing inhabitants of Buda in the west region of Cameroon have been arrested. They were arrested by elements of the National Gendarmerie during an operation. Immaculate Fogwe has more.
A massive turnout of the population of Buda in the west region of Cameroon at the Buda Gendarmerie Brigade at a time when the government insists on the wearing of face mask and the respect of social distancing as a way to contain the coronavirus. Majority of those present are not respecting the prescribed measures. The population are excited over the arrest of 4 alleged bandits who have been terrorizing them. The gang of 4 had recently attacked a man in his late 50s who was on his way to Bamenda and a shopkeeper in Buda.
Bon, à 4 heures, ça dit 5 heures moins le quart au Carrefour Capapa.
While on my way to board a taxi that would take me to Bamenda at about 5 a.m., I was encircled by 4 boys at Kappa Junction. While I tried escaping, they tore my dress, seized my phone and the sum of 100,000 CFA francs. They equally hit my head.
Ça fait aujourd'hui 2 mois.
2 months ago, my store was robbed by these boys. They went away with cartons of apples and my truck. Today, they carried out another operation, but this time around in my house. I am so happy they have been arrested.
Je remercie le brigade pour le travail qu'il est en train de faire.
Once alerted about the operation carried out by the 4 boys, the commander of the Buda Gendarmerie Brigade, Lachile Sebastien, and his elements launched an operation leading to the arrest. Upon the arrest, the 4 were bundled in a peacock alongside the stolen items such as gas bottles, gas plates, mattresses, cartons of apples to name but these, and taken to the Buda Gendarmerie premises. They were equally in possession of dangerous weapons like machetes, axes, knives, including a bag of cannabis. The fate of the alleged bandits will be determined in the court of law. The Gendarmerie commander, Lachile Sebastien, while presenting the 4 alleged bandits to the population, called on them to collaborate with law enforcement officers so other bandits could equally be arrested.
Forces of law and order are now investigating the alleged assassination of a student, a 23-year-old student in Edea, and Équinoxe Julien was discovered dead in a well. Manjig and Gabriel.
Consternation and shock grips the family members of Équinoxe Julien. The 23-year-old student, according to her mother, was lastly seen last Thursday. The pungent odor that emanated from the well in front of their premises pushed the family members to call on the Army Rescue Unit of Edea. Upon their arrival, it was noticed that the smell which was coming out of the hole was that of a dead person. With their equipment, the Army Rescue Unit battled to remove the body that was near decomposition. Immediately, the body was retrieved from the hole. Équinoxe Julien was buried at a path in the family residence. Administrative officials of Edea who were present on the scene have promised to investigate into what must have led to the death of the young man. The parents are suspecting that he must have been assassinated and dumped into the hole.
World Health Organization chief warns of lack of what he qualifies as critical or most critical ingredient in any response. Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus says lack of trust between governments and people is a major hindrance to the success of the global response to the coronavirus. Take a listen.
Let me be blunt. Too many countries are headed in the wrong direction. The virus remains public enemy number one, but the actions of many governments and people do not reflect of this. The only aim of the virus is to find people to infect. Mixed messages from leaders are undermining the most critical ingredient of any response.
Talking Point is up next. Barrister Christopher Ndong, Secretary General of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, CRA and political parties, joining us from Yaoundé. Good evening, Barrister.
Good evening, Mr. Babila Jonathan. Good evening, listeners of Equinoxe Television.
Thanks for
and viewers.
All right, thanks for joining us today. You indicated in a statement that you are facing death threats. What is it all about?
Yes, the 9th of July 2020 at about 9 p.m. at night, 5 gunmen came to my residence in Boya, and when they knocked, my son came out. They told him that they came to rent a studio which they had around the quarters that is available at my place. My son asked them, why are you coming late this night? Can you come tomorrow? They said no, they want to look at the place and then tomorrow they will come and do the formalities. When he took the keys of the studio, took them upstairs on the first floor, when he opened the door, they had to hurriedly push him through the wall and caused him to give my number to them. And he said, you people said you needed a studio, why are you now telling me to give you the number? The number was not the question before. So they said, I'm going to kill a gunman.
All right, Barrister Christopher Ndong joining us from Yaoundé is the Secretary General of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, CRM political party, explaining what happened at his residence earlier this month. His residence, notably the southwest regional chieftain Boya, and he's saying that he is facing death threats from some unknown persons, some of them who visited his residence in the Boya in the southwest region of the country. Barrister, you were telling us about what happened at your residence in Boya.
Yes, I said at 9 at night, some 5 gunmen came, 2 dressed in a civilian attire and 3 others in military attire.
Sorry about the poor connection and the interruptions there with Barrister Christopher Ndong, who is speaking to us from Yaoundé. And Barrister Christopher Ndong, as I indicated earlier, is the Secretary General of the Cameroon Renaissance Movement, CRM political party, and has been with other militants of the party, with other officials of the party at the front line of the struggle for change in the Republic of Cameroon, the struggle for democratic change in the Republic of Cameroon, the struggle against electoral holdup, as the party describes it, and of course the struggle for an end to the 4-year-long socio-political and security tensions in the northwest and southwest regions of the Republic of Cameroon. And he and other militants of the party did not take part in the last municipal and legislative elections in the Republic of Cameroon because they put some preconditions, saying that the Anglophone crisis must be solved and the electoral code, which they consider as bad, as tailored to favor the ruling CPDM, the Cameroon People's Democratic Movement, must be reviewed. And so they didn't take part in the presidential election. And Barrister Christopher Ndong has been one of the persons who have been very vocal on the Anglophone crisis and other issues of national interest in the Republic of Cameroon, urging governments to provide concrete solutions for a return to peace and normalcy in Anglophone Cameroon, and also to solve other socio-political challenges facing President Paul Biya's country. Unfortunately, we're going to end Talking Point here today. Thanks for staying with us. We'll be coming back with Barrister Christopher Ndong some other day. Thank you.